Hey, what's going on, everybody? My name is Daniel Retberg, and today I'm going to be talking about what it's like to live in Nashville and what it's like to move here recently and some of the things that you might expect living here. I'm not famous, I'm just a regular dude. I'm not a prodigy, I'm just a regular guy that moved here, and thankfully I do earn a living playing guitar here. So I've been here a little bit over a year, maybe like a year and 5 months, and it's been amazing. But there's so many little things that I've learned in such a short period of time, and it would be impossible to maybe cover everything in one video. And I'm sure maybe in a couple years from now, I'll be looking back at this and be like, man, I didn't know shit about anything. But here we are. So I am originally from like some middle of nowhere town in Michigan, and then I eventually moved to Detroit. And I was gigging in Detroit for like almost 10 years, playing pretty much in all black bands for like all black audiences, black churches, also white churches. But I mean, I was just, basically cut my teeth being in that type of musical environment. And I learned so much. It was unbelievable. And I'm so grateful for that experience. But after about, like I said, almost like 10 years. And then after the COVID thing, I kind of felt like I sort of, hit the ceiling and I maxed out my opportunities there. So, I mean, especially after the COVID thing, I was just like, why not come here and just go for it? I had been to Nashville for the first time, maybe like 8 or 9 years ago, actually. And I went with a buddy and we loved it. It was amazing, but it just didn't seem like I, could make it happen, I had doubts and everything, and over the years I had been to LA a couple times. Well, I've been there many times, but I've played there a few times, and it's just so massive and just overwhelming. I didn't think that I could, possibly go there, especially with the cost of living and everything. Same thing with New York. It was pretty crazy going there and just seeing the lifestyle and everything. But in Nashville, it's kind of a smaller city, and it felt to me like, okay, this is, accessible, So anyway, I felt like I was ready, so I came here. So what is it like to kind of live here and earn a living playing music? I play downtown most of the time. I also do road gigs and fly dates. Sometimes I'll do like some sessions out of my studio. Just to start out, there's no shame in having a job if you're here. Nobody really cares what you do for money, really. Everybody's just hustling and just trying to make ends meet and trying to, live in this interesting world that we have now today. So there's no shame in having like a full-time job while you're pursuing music or having a part-time job. It's all good. Just do what you have to do. And then if it comes to a point where you have enough gigs and enough work to kind of push off from shore, just go for it. It's a scary thing, but it's definitely, worth it. And it's good to have, a good amount of free time. So in case somebody calls you for a gig, you have some availability for that. How it goes around here, I have some notes down here. So if I'm looking down, it's, I have a bunch of notes. So just bear with me. I don't want to forget anything, which I know I probably will at the end of this video. But the way of the land around here is you need to learn songs. Trust me when I say this, you're going to be learning like hundreds and hundreds of songs, if not like thousands. It's like, it's so much work. I mean, I can't tell you the amount of times, like when I first moved here, I'd be like sitting at my desk in my room for like 6-7 hours a day, just learning songs like crazy. Seriously, like, and not just like, you have to not just know the songs from beginning to end, like the structure of the studio recording. You need to know the parts, you need to know the signature solos. Like people around here will call Sweet Child of Mine like it's nothing, or, Hotel California, and you just have to know it like the record, You not only need to know the songs like the record, you need to know like the tones, be able to get the tones. So if somebody calls Purple Rain, you need to have like a chorusing pedal of some kind. Or if you're playing country, it's good to like, some people don't use compressors, but the, compression on like a Telecaster, that's kind of, the sound, so you got to be able to kind of mimic what you're hearing on records. And there is no substitute for this. Like, if you're somebody that just likes soloing, respectively, just soloing over backing tracks, like fusion tracks and stuff like that, that's not really how things work around here. It's very, very song-oriented here. You are accompanying a singer like 99% of the time, so you need to be able to, play your specific role in a band. It's not all about shredding here. it's good to have some technique and be able to, kind of show your skills and everything. But it's like YouTube and TikTok and Instagram, it's really sort of distorted our idea of what a good musician is now. It's like we think like, oh my gosh, that person's like, playing scales and arpeggios and sweeps and stuff up and down the neck. They're just amazing. But you'd be shocked how much of the time you don't even actually use that. It's really about like being a regular functioning musician, being able to play in a band. If a band is soft, you're soft. If a band is loud, you're louder. So and that comes with practice, so being able to play different styles really sort of helps as well. The more versatile you are, the more work you're going to get. So yes, you can sort of come here and just be a rock musician and, gig and stuff. But I mean, this is still the South, and it's Nashville. It's good to be able to play country, and I'm not an expert at playing country, but I know enough to get by. So if you can play rock, if you can play country, if you can play R&B and like funk, that also helps too. Those gigs are down here as well. So the more versatile you are, the more likely you're going to get called, because you're not just fitting into one sort of category of player. So again, it's just all about just, like, I can't emphasize this enough. Like, it's not all about you when you're in a band. You have to sort of fit into the mix of everything else and just, play your part, and people will recognize that, and people will be able to depend on you for gigs. There is a Facebook group. There's several Facebook groups, but there's like Nashville Gig Finder. There's Nashville Musician Finder. Join those groups. And also, set your notifications on Facebook to like anytime somebody posts something, make sure you set it so that you just get everything. Because you never know, you can definitely get gigs that way. I've met people on there for sure. And this mostly correlates to, playing downtown on Broadway and, some road gigs. But it is quite difficult to kind of get down there because, as you might have guessed, there are thousands and thousands of musicians down here and everybody's sort of chasing the same dollar. That doesn't really matter that much. If you're a good player and you're a nice person and, like I said, you just know the songs, the Broadway standards, as they say, it's usually about the same 200 songs. And of course, you're never going to stop learning songs. There's going to be like those initial 200. It's not really a definite number, but you're always going to be learning songs. And if you do a gig and there's a song that you don't know, it's fine. It's not the end of the world. But take note of it, and if you come home and you remember it, or you wrote it down, if you have some free time, just learn it, because believe me, it's going to get called again. You may not think that it will, but maybe a month or two later it probably will. So the Gig Finder pages on Facebook are very, very helpful, but at the same time, the internet is not going to do everything for you. For us regular folks, most of us are not going to be discovered on Instagram and YouTube and everything like that. It's very old school here. You still have to like just go downtown and, meet people and, go to other people's shows and introduce yourself. We sort of, with especially after the pandemic, but I mean, mixed with phones and everything, we're all sort of even more introverted and almost socially awkward now. Like even more so than we are, 2025. So you need to sort of be an extrovert in a way, and you need to meet people and be genuine and try to actually make friends with people. I've met people downtown, and literally like the next day they've called me and asked if I was available for a gig. So that does happen. Have some videos of yourself. Have like an Instagram or a YouTube of some kind, where if you give people a link, because usually especially on the Gig Finder pages, people are going to be like, okay, well, what do you sound like? Have like videos ready to go of you, preferably playing live, because that gives people an idea of like what to expect if they, this is what this person looks like while they're on stage, It can be a little bit misleading if you're just sort of playing in your living room and everything like that, because anybody could sit down and shred and give you your best minute, but when you're, most gigs downtown, it's like 3.5 hours long, for a gig, and it's a lot of songs, and you're going from song to song to song to song most of the time, if you are technically very, very good and you have videos of yourself that are just like a minute and you're soloing and, all that, it's like, that's a totally, like, being on stage for 3.5 hours is a totally different ball game, man. It's like, you just have to have experience with playing live and playing songs from start to finish, just like the record. I just can't overemphasize this. So having videos of yourself will definitely will help tremendously. And so with guitar, it's crucial that we know the number system on guitar. So when I was playing in churches in Detroit, we used the number system a lot. I do have a video on this. I think I made it last year or something about gospel guitar. That is very, very helpful. I learned so much about harmony by playing with black musicians in churches. It's crazy. But knowing the number system and, just knowing how music works. You don't have to like know a bunch of theory and stuff like that, but just learn the number system, the 1 through 7, but also learn the in-between chords. The flat 3, the flat 6, the flat 7, the 5 minor, the 4 minor. It's not that difficult to learn, but it is crucial to know the number system here. And also know how to change keys. So many times, like if you're playing with different vocalists and different bands, sometimes people do things in different keys. So like I've done like Shook Me All Night Long in F before, and it's like you're on a gig and they'll call it, they'll be like, okay, we're gonna do Shook Me in F, and it's like usually it's in G, so it's like it might take like 10-15 seconds or whatever to just sit there and like process it, like, okay, how does this go, I did Summer of '69 the other day in E, usually it's in D, and that felt really weird. So being able to change keys is very crucial. I know on guitar we're sort of cursed. It's a blessing and a curse, but we're like, the shapes and the patterns and everything like that. And there are really, really great players that honestly have no idea what's going on here, So knowing the neck of the instrument, knowing how harmony works and everything, that will really, really help you out and save you from a lot of suffering, I guess. Singing is super important too. That's honestly like one of the number one questions people will ask you around here is, do you sing? And I'm one of those people that has avoided singing for most of my life. And I'll take lessons here and there with singing. I grew up singing in like the church choir. My mom was a choir director, so I could sing, but it's just like, it's very crucial that you can sing here. It's not really a deal breaker, but trust me, I've seen it and heard it in conversations. It's like musician A might be an incredible musician, and musician B might be like, okay, pretty good, maybe not as good, but musician B sings. A lot of the time they'll go with musician B because it's like they're good enough to get the job done and it'll be fine, but they also sing and they can lead songs. So again, most gigs downtown are 3.5 hours, so it's like nobody wants to sing for that entire time. So especially when they run the bucket and they get requests and get tips from people, it's good to have, like a co-front, maybe it's a guitar player or a bass player, or maybe even a second, lead vocalist that's just, fronting. It's like there's times like where I'll sing like 10 songs at a gig, and then the bass player will sing like another 5 or 6 or 10 or whatever. It's just good to have a list of songs that you can sing, and preferably songs that are kind of on like, like I said, the list of Broadway standards. There is no definite list, I would say, but there's plenty of like Broadway Spotify lists that you can go down. So have a list of like maybe 15, 20, 25 songs that you can sing, because it will help you get gigs actually. And like I said, there's people like that sing a lot downtown. They might do 2, 3, 4 gigs a day sometimes, and especially if you're a vocalist, that's really hard on your voice. So if you're great at your instrument, if you're great at playing bass or keys and guitar or whatever, and you can also sing lead vocals and do harmonies, that will definitely help out with getting hired. Having your rig together is crucial. Like this is not really a place where you're sort of like, of course you're learning a lot while you're here, but have some experience gigging wherever town you're from, whether it's a small town or a big city. Before you come to Nashville, like have some experience gigging, because the greatest musicians in the world come here, and they not only know how to play, but they have experience in playing in bands. It's really important to have experience doing this, but also have your rig together. Have like different amps that you like, have different guitars, just be familiar with different pedals and having a dependable pedal board and having a rig that's dependable. eventually something will go wrong. If you're playing gigs all the time, and like I said, these several hour-long gigs, you're gonna break a string. You're gonna, maybe a pedal might stop working or a cable might stop working. It can happen to anybody. So not only having your rig together, but having it be as reliable as possible. Having the ability to go direct too as guitar players is important. I love amps. I have some really nice tube amps. I spent a lot of money on them, but some venues downtown, it's like they want the stage to be quiet because they want people to be able to hear conversations that they're having with their friends. So having the ability to go direct is important. There's some venues like you can't use amps at all. You just need to be able to go direct. So I use a Dream 65 by Universal Audio. It's amazing. That's just what I use, and I just keep it in my bag, and it takes pedals really well. So going direct is a key thing, having that option. I always bring 2 guitars to a gig, and the reason why is, like I said, if you break a string, having another guitar ready to go helps tremendously. It keeps the show moving, and people will be impressed by that. If you break a string, it's just like, oh, I have another guitar ready to go, and people will be like, oh, okay, this guy's got his stuff together, he's prepared. Have like a little cart or something and get them on Amazon. If you are using an amp downtown especially, it's like, believe me, like you might be walking like long distances, and you do not want to be carrying like an amp and your pedal board and everything like that. Like have like a little cart that can fold up and like unfold and then fold up again. It will save your ass, trust me, and they're not that expensive. If you are bringing a guitar, if you are a guitar player, like some people do it and it's not the end of the world, but for me, it's like using a hard case is not really the way to go. It's better to like mono cases are really good. I have a couple of those bags, and I have like a dual one so I can carry 2 at the same time. That goes along your back, and then if I don't need an amp that day, I'll just have my pedal board in one hand, and then I can like shake somebody's hands, or I can like open the door with the other hand. Having a hard case, it automatically takes up one of your limbs, and it's kind of like bulky, and it can kind of run into stuff. So hard cases, some people use them downtown, but it's just all about efficiency, and kind of having your method and kind of having like a system. What else do we have here? I've talked about networking. It's very old school, like I said. A lot of people here are really nice, honestly. There are some people here that are not so nice, but a majority of people are actually really, really cool here. And if you talk to somebody downtown, be like, hey, I just moved here, just trying to meet people. Everybody's kind of like passing the torch in a way. So, but again, like I said, the internet is not going to do everything for you. You can't just sit in your apartment all day and just expect, your phone to just ring or somebody to just discover you on Instagram magically. You have to leave your house or your home or whatever and go downtown. And sometimes parking, if you don't have validated parking downtown, it can be expensive, but it's kind of like an investment, and it's like maybe you might spend $30, $35, $40 for parking, and maybe you didn't meet as many people as you hoped you'd meet. Again, like come down on another day and invest in parking and maybe buying people drinks or food or whatever. Just being real, there's enough fake people out there. Just be real and be sincere. And if you are a great player, it's just like you'll get hired eventually. So it's all about the hang, especially if you're on the road. Like, if you do road gigs, it's like sometimes the gig might only be like an hour and a half long, but you're spending time like on the airplane with people, waiting at the gate, or you might be in like a bus or a van or something. It's like the gig is actually just a small percentage of the whole experience. You have hours before and hours after, and you got to spend time with people, and you have to be able to get along with people. It's like sometimes the greatest musicians are like the weirdest people, and it's like in certain situations, people are more willing to settle with a musician that might not be the best musician, but they're like cool as hell, That's an important piece of the pie, you know what I mean? Like one piece is like your skill, and then the other piece is like, are they cool? And then I know I'm wearing a t-shirt right now, but it's like also have like your image together to an extent. you know, I have like tons of clothes. I spent so much money on clothes over the years. It's like, you know, when you go to a gig, don't look like you just rolled out of bed, you know, try to like, you know, be presentable and everything like that. If you have all of these elements together, it's just like you'll succeed, you know. This is a huge thing, honestly. Being able to take rejection well is important, because like, this is Nashville, man. It's like everybody around the world comes here, and everybody can play, and everybody, you know, has their shit together. You know what I mean? It's like you need to be able to take rejection well, and it's like, it's not the end of the world if somebody says no. It's just like, just keep going, and you might be hearing no a lot. Somebody might say no, 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 and then eventually you'll get a yes. You know, not everybody's going to pick up the phone when you call them. Not everybody's going to text you back. You know, it's just how it is, you know. So don't get discouraged, but you have to have thick skin, and you have to be able to, you know, you're just going to deal with some nonsense while you're here. You know, it's not going to all just be sunshine and rainbows, you know. But most of the time, you know, it can be a really great experience. But just keep that in mind, honestly, and it never ends. You know, there's examples of session musicians here and touring musicians that have been around the block, and it's like they face rejection or they get ghosted by people. It's just how it is. So it's not just happening to you, okay? Not everything will make sense here, and what I mean by that is you might be at like a venue, and there might be a band that's on stage, and they're just like absolutely killing, man, like just amazing, but there's like nobody there. And then you might go to like some like big place, and there's like a band on stage that's not very good at all, but the place is like packed full of people, and it's kind of like, well, why is that? You know what I mean? It deserves to be flipped, right? It's very like almost like political and bureaucratic here, you know. It's like all about like who you know, and so sometimes it's not about just how good you are, you know. It's like relationships are important, and just, you know, meeting the right person and everything. It's very much like that. So there's gonna be plenty of times you're gonna be in Nashville, and you're just gonna be like, this doesn't make sense. So just kind of prepare for that, you know. It's quite a ride. It is a journey. But just kind of enjoy the experience. You know, everybody's sort of, you know, starring in their own movie in a way. It kind of, you know, matches up with my next point here. Is like, don't worry about comparison. You know, there are going to be people that are better than you, like on every instrument. It doesn't matter if you play bass or drums or guitar or singing. Like, you know, there are going to be people that are better than you, and it's like, you're going to see it. Not everybody is like a prodigy here. There are plenty of musicians here that are actually like not that good at all, but they're gigging and they're like earning a living, you know. It's really strange. Again, you could be a really good hang, or maybe you're just lucky, or you're just really good at hustling, or really good at, you know, meeting people. You have the gift of the gab, as they say. But not everybody's a prodigy here. So if you're good or great or whatever, don't worry about like being the best, because that's going to be, it's impossible. Like, the best has already happened. Like, if you listen to Friday Night in San Francisco with Al Di Meola and John McLaughlin and Paco de Lucia, that album came out like 45 years ago. You know what I mean? Like, no guitar player nowadays has the right to having an ego. You know what I mean? The best has already been out there for prior to us being born, you know? So you're not going to be the best, and you don't have to worry about being the best. It's like, just be competent and be functional, and being like I said, it's all about being able to like mesh well with a unit of musicians. Like, play your part, you know, and be in tune as well, you know. Guitars are so hard to get in tune. It's so frustrating. So it's good to be able to work on your own instrument as well. Be able to set up the intonation, and being able to, there's certain things that I will not do. I'll take them to a tech. But there are certain things, like, you need to be able to intonate your instrument. You need to be able to sort of, you know, adjust action and everything like that. Because especially when you're playing with a keyboard player, it's like, if you're out of tune, man, they're going to find somebody that can play in tune. So it's a really crucial thing now, especially with records being so perfect. If you do meet somebody that is better than you, which you definitely will, try to become friends with that person. You know, it's like these people are not your enemies. You could absolutely learn something from these people, you know? Just because somebody is better than you doesn't mean you need to envy them. It's like, you know, I have plenty of friends here that are better than me. And like, I've asked them about, you know, like, what was that like you're doing there? Or like, you can ask them about advice, you know, like real world advice, not just about playing, but just about like getting gigs and networking and what their method is. Most of the time, people will actually kind of open up and kind of show you their method for things. Sometimes they won't. There are people that are really, really good and they might be better than you, and they're total assholes at the same time. Like I said, it's like not everybody's going to want to be your friend. I've met people here, like I've met them like one time, and it's like you're best friends with that person. And sometimes it might take maybe like 3 or 4 or 5 different meetings with one person. Then finally they start to open up, and then you can actually, you know, sort of have, you know, a friendship with this person. And there are also people that you're going to meet that it's just like, you're just not going to get along with them. You're not going to be friends with them. It's just not going to work. I was one of those people, and I still am. I consider myself somebody like I can get along with like almost anybody. I have friends of like all walks of life, but even here, there are people that, you know, you're going to meet, you're just not going to get along with them. And that's fine. Just move on. Of course, it's very, very cliquey here. You're not going to be friends with everybody. But if you're cool and, you know, you're a real person and you can play well, you'll become part of the right circles. You know, the right people will find you, and you'll find the right people. One thing that is kind of cool that I've noticed is you don't really age out here. There are plenty of people downtown that are like 50, 60 years old. I'm 33, and I've moved here shortly before my 32nd birthday. So you don't really age out here. There are people that I've met who have moved here when they're like 40. But of course, when they moved here, they were already a badass and they had their social skills together. So sometimes it doesn't really take as long as you think to kind of, you know, I mean, like I said, I'm a nobody. I'm not a prodigy by any means. But there's enough work here where, you know, you can make a living here. You might not be the most famous person. You might not be the #1 call person for everybody. But there's enough work here, and there's enough circles of musicians here where you can, you know, actually earn a living doing this. Let me see if I missed anything. I don't think I did. Of course, when I end this video, I'm going to, you know, look back and be like, oh, I should have talked about that. But again, you know, just make the move. If you feel like it's your destiny and you feel like it's, you know, it's in your heart, like I have to do this, you know, don't worry about people saying like, oh, you shouldn't move here. Like, you know, as you know, good as I am at this instrument, it's like I had people in Michigan like telling me, oh, like if you move to Nashville, you know, musicians like you know, guitarists like you are a dime a dozen, you know, it's going to be really hard for you to get a gig, you know. It's like people don't really know shit about anything, honestly. Like everybody's such an expert on everything nowadays, or at least they pretend to be. Like there are people who have never been to Nashville, they've never moved to Nashville, they have no idea what it's like to actually do it, you know. It's just stuff that they've heard or stuff that they, you know, might guesstimate is a reality, you know. You're gonna absolutely hear that, and I kept it very low key, you know. In fact, I had friends that didn't even know that I was moving here until I actually moved here, and I sort of like made the announcement on social media. So there are going to be people that are going to doubt you. You might even doubt yourself. It's like don't worry about that. It's like just visit here a few times before you move here. I mean, before I moved here, I looked at like 40 different apartment complexes. Seriously, like I went north, south, east, west, and I just, you know, looked for places and looked for certain parts of town that I liked. And it is pretty expensive to live here, but I lived in like a nicer part of Detroit, so my rent was already high, so it wasn't that big of a difference, honestly. So yeah, you have to switch your electric bill over, and it's like a process, you know, and it might be intimidating, like, oh, I have to move all my stuff, and then I have to, you know, find a place to live and all of that. It's a process, but once you're here and you're settled, and you have your new license and all that, you can really, you know, hit the ground running. So I hope you guys like this video. If you have any questions, feel free to leave a comment, and if there's anything that I, you know, should have said but I didn't, I'll probably just pin the comment. But again, if you want to see more content like this, subscribe to my channel, and hit that little bell thingy. I used to make a lot of videos in the past, but I haven't done them because I've just been really busy gigging and living life, and also a friend of mine that was helping me with my content, he moved away. He's much, much better at making videos and editing than I am. So I'm just kind of doing it like this for now. So hope you guys all have a great day, and peace.